Let me start with something that sounds harmless. Look around you right now. The table, the floor, the walls, your own body, everything looks still, solid, calm, at rest. But that picture is completely wrong. Not slightly wrong, not technically wrong, fundamentally wrong. Nothing in the universe is still, not even for a moment. And once you truly understand that, the universe never looks the same again. We are taught very early on that motion is something special, something extra, a thing that happens to objects. A ball rolls, a planet moves, a car accelerates. Motion feels like an activity added on top of existence. What if that picture is upside down? What if motion is not something added to things? What if motion is what things are? That question sounds philosophical, but it's actually deeply physical, and it's a question that most textbooks quietly step around because the answer is unsettling. Let's begin very simply. Imagine you want something to be perfectly still, truly still, no vibration, no movement, no change at all. What would that even mean? Take a cup sitting on a table. You call it at rest, but if you could zoom in, really zoom in, you would see motion everywhere. Tiny motions, constant motions, restless motions. The cup isn't calm, it's busy. So maybe you say, all right, but that's just small stuff. On average, it's still fine. Let's push further. What about a single particle? Surely that can be still. But the universe refuses that idea too. Every attempt to freeze something completely runs into a strange resistance. Not mechanical resistance, not friction. Something deeper. As if reality itself says, no, that's not allowed. And that's the first clue. Stillness is not a natural state. Now here's where common sense starts to betray us. Common sense says, if nothing is pushing something, it should stop. Motion needs a cause. Stillness is default. But the universe doesn't agree. In fact, if something does become perfectly still in the deepest possible sense, it stops being something you can point to. It dissolves as a physical idea. This isn't mystical. It's practical. Because when motion disappears completely, information disappears with it. There's nothing left to define where something is, what it's doing, or even whether it exists as a distinct thing. So motion isn't optional. It's structural. And now the question changes. We stop asking, why are things moving? And we start asking, why does motion never stop? To answer that, let's use an analogy. Not a perfect one. There are no perfect analogies, but a useful one. Imagine you're trying to balance a bicycle. When the bicycle is perfectly still, it falls over. When it moves, it stays upright. That seems backwards at first. But motion creates stability. Now imagine a universe where everything tried to be perfectly still. It wouldn't become peaceful. It would collapse. Structures wouldn't hold. Patterns wouldn't survive. So the universe does something clever. It trades stillness for balance. Everything moves just enough to stay together. That's not chaos. That's organization through motion. Now think bigger. Planets spin. Why? Stars spin. Why? Galaxies rotate. Why? You might say because of how they formed. True. But that's not an explanation, it's a description. Why does formation always involve rotation? Why does collapse turn into spin instead of stillness? Because spin is what prevents collapse from finishing the job. Spin is nature's way of saying, you can fall inward but not all the way. And this pattern repeats everywhere. At every scale, motion creates limits. Limits create structure. Structure creates existence. And here's the strange part. This motion is not something you can remove. You can slow it down. You can redistribute it. You can transform it. But you cannot erase it. The universe guards motion like a conservation of identity. And that tells us something profound. Reality is not built out of static objects. It's built out of ongoing activity. What you call a thing is just a pattern that lasts long enough to notice. A whirlpool in a river is not made of special water. It's made of motion, arranged in a stable way. You are more like a whirlpool than a rock, and that idea alone should already feel unsettling. because it means existence is not about being, it's about continuing. Now let's talk about why this feels so unintuitive. Our brains evolved to deal with slow, large objects. Chairs, trees, animals, none of these show their motion openly. So our intuition mistakes stability for stillness. But stability is not the absence of motion. It's the presence of balanced motion. And the universe is extremely good at balancing motion. So good, in fact, that it can create the illusion of rest. But illusions break when you look closely enough. And when physicists started looking closely, really closely, they didn't find a quiet universe underneath. They found a restless one. A universe where everything vibrates, rotates, fluctuates, and refuses to sit still. Not because it's energetic, but because stillness is not a stable option. And now we reach the uncomfortable realization. If nothing in the universe is still, then stillness is not the ground of reality. Motion is, which means our everyday sense of calm, rest, and solidity is built on top of something fundamentally dynamic, and that changes how you interpret everything. It means order is not the opposite of motion. It's a special kind of motion. It means chaos is not the absence of rules. It's motion without balance. And it means the universe is not a collection of frozen things. It's a dance that never stops. Now pause for a moment. Really pause. If this is true, if nothing is ever still, then what does that say about you? Your body looks stable. Your thoughts feel continuous. Your identity feels fixed. But if the universe does not allow stillness anywhere else, why would it allow it inside you? That question is not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, because once you realize that you are not a static object but a process, change stops looking like a threat, and motion stops looking like noise. It starts to look like life itself. And we're just getting started, because the deeper we go, the more uncomfortable and beautiful this idea becomes. So now we're no longer asking whether things move. We're asking why motion organizes instead of destroying everything, because that's the strange part. If everything is always moving, always restless, always in motion, why doesn't the universe look like pure chaos? Why don't atoms fly apart? Why don't stars dissolve? Why doesn't matter smear itself into nothing? Motion should destroy structure, and yet somehow motion creates it. That feels like a contradiction, but it isn't. It's a clue. Let's try another simple picture. Imagine a room full of people standing perfectly still. No one moves, no one turns, no one shifts their weight. It feels ordered, but it's fragile. One small push, and everything collapses into confusion. Now imagine the same room, but everyone is slowly walking in circles. They adjust, they avoid collisions. They create lanes without planning them. Motion produces coordination. Stillness is brittle, motion is flexible. The universe prefers flexibility, so instead of building things that rely on being frozen, it builds things that survive by moving. And spin is the most powerful form of that strategy. Spin is not random motion. Spin is organized motion that resists change. You've felt this in your hands. Try to twist a spinning bicycle wheel. It fights back, not aggressively, not violently, stubbornly. It wants to keep doing what it's doing. That resistance is not friction. It's not material strength. It's geometry in motion. And the universe uses this everywhere. Spin gives systems memory. It gives them identity over time. A spinning system remembers its orientation. It remembers its motion. It resists being erased. That's why collapse turns into rotation. When matter falls inward, it doesn't disappear into a point. It begins to spin. The universe converts collapse into circulation. Not as a choice, as a necessity. Because pure collapse ends structure. Spin preserves it. Now take that idea and shrink it way down, inside atoms. We're told that atoms are stable because of forces, but that explanation hides something deeper. Stability doesn't come from being held still. It comes from motion being unable to stop. Confinement costs energy. Trying to freeze something completely costs more energy than letting it move. So nature chooses motion. Not because it's energetic, but because it's economical. Stillness is expensive. Motion is cheap, and that flips our intuition upside down. We imagine motion as something that needs fuel. But at fundamental levels, stillness is what needs fuel. Motion is what's left when you stop forcing things to behave. And now we can say something shocking without exaggeration. The universe is not powered by energy. It is structured by motion. Energy just measures how hard it is to change that motion. That's a subtle difference, but it matters, because it means reality is not a machine that needs to be wound up. It's a pattern that keeps going unless you interfere. Now let's talk about limits, because motion alone isn't enough. If everything could move in any way it wanted, nothing would hold together. So the universe adds constraints, not arbitrary ones, natural ones. Motion is allowed, but not unlimited. Spin is allowed, but only in certain patterns. These patterns are not negotiable. They are the price of existence. You don't get freedom without structure. You don't get motion without rules. And those rules are not written down somewhere. They emerge from how motion behaves when it's constrained. Think of a spinning top again. It can wobble, it can tilt, but it can't behave randomly. Its motion is shaped by its spin. In the same way, matter is shaped by how motion is allowed to organize. And this is why the universe comes in chunks, why atoms have distinct identities, why chemistry works, why matter doesn't blur endlessly. Reality prefers steps over smoothness, not because it likes neatness, because smooth freedom is unstable. So the universe compromises. It allows motion, but only in stable arrangements. And once those arrangements exist, they repeat, they persist, they become reliable. That reliability is what we call laws. But laws are not commands. They are habits. They are what motion does when it's allowed to settle into stable patterns. And now comes the part that makes people uncomfortable, because it suggests that the universe didn't start with rules. The rules emerged because certain motions survived. Everything else disappeared. That means the universe is not designed from the top down. It's shaped from the bottom up, survival of stable motion. And suddenly, physics starts to sound like evolution, not biological evolution, structural evolution, patterns that last, stay, patterns that don't, vanish. And spin is one of the patterns that lasts, because it resists collapse. It resists erasure. It resists being pinned down. Now think about time. We talk about time as something flowing. But what if time is just motion seen from the inside? A spinning system distinguishes before from after. It has orientation. It has direction. It has persistence. Without motion, time has nothing to mark, no change, no sequence, no memory. So time and motion are inseparable, not because clocks move, but because without motion, before and after lose meaning. And that means when you experience time passing, you are experiencing motion at the deepest level, not your watch, not the sun, the structure of reality itself. Now pause again. If motion creates structure, and structure creates identity, then identity is not fixed. It's maintained, continuously, which means everything you think of as permanent is actually sustained, actively, moment by moment. Atoms hold together because motion balances motion. Stars shine because collapse and rotation negotiate with each. Third, galaxies persist because spin organizes gravity instead of letting it finish its work. And you exist because countless motions inside you are balanced just well enough to last. That should change how you think about fragility. The universe is not fragile because it moves. It survives because it moves. And stillness would be the most fragile state of all. In the next part, we'll go even further. We'll ask what this constant motion says about meaning, certainty, and our place inside a universe that never stops turning. And by the end, the question won't be, why is everything moving? It will be, how could anything exist without motion at all? So now we are standing at the edge of the idea, not the end of the topic, but the edge of what explanations can comfortably reach, because once you accept that nothing in the universe is still, a strange shift happens in how you see reality. The universe stops looking like a collection of objects, and it starts looking like a collection of processes. Things are not primary. Patterns are. A mountain is not a thing. It's slow motion. A rock is not solid. It's organized vibration. A body is not an object. It's a long-lasting balance of activity. And that realization quietly changes everything, because it means the universe is not made of nouns, it's made of verbs. We like nouns, they feel safe, they feel stable. But the universe doesn't speak noun, it speaks motion. And when you finally accept that, you stop asking the wrong questions. You stop asking, what is this made of? And you start asking, what is this doing that allows it to exist? Now think about certainty. We crave certa. Inti. We want firm answers, fixed truths. But a universe built on motion cannot give you absolute still answers. It can only give you reliable patterns. Truth in such a universe is not a frozen statement. It's a behavior that keeps working. And that's why science doesn't give eternal answers. It gives increasingly good descriptions of how motion organizes itself. That's not weakness. That's humility. Feynman understood this deeply. He didn't trust explanations that sounded finished, because reality isn't finished. It's ongoing. Every explanation is a snapshot of a moving target. And the moment you think you've stopped the motion with words, you've misunderstood the universe. Now let's bring this closer. Closer than atoms. Closer than stars. Let's talk about you again. You wake up each morning feeling like the same person. But are you? Your body has changed. Your thoughts have shifted. Your memories have been rearranged. And yet there's continuity. Not because you are still, but because the motion is balanced. Your identity is not stored like a file. It's maintained like a flame. The flame looks steady, but it's never the same fire. And if motion stopped, so would you. That's not poetic. That's physical. Which means change is not something happening to you. Change is what keeps you here. And suddenly fear of change feels misplaced. The universe does not fear motion. It relies on it. Now think about death. We fear it because we imagine it as motion ending. But nothing in the universe truly stops. Patterns dissolve, structures rearrange, motion continues, just no longer organized the same way. The universe doesn't erase, it transforms, and that doesn't make loss painless, but it makes it less absurd, because nothing you are made of disappears. Only the pattern changes. Now let's zoom out one last time. Look at the universe as a whole, a restless, rotating, expanding, fluctuating system. Not calm, not finished, not settled. And yet, breathtakingly coherent. Galaxies don't crash randomly. Atoms don't collapse instantly. Matter doesn't dissolve into noise. Why? Because motion organizes itself. Because spin creates persistence. Because reality is better at balance than we ever imagined. And here is the final, unsettling insight. The universe does not seek rest. It seeks continuation. Stillness would be the end of information, the end of structure, the end of story. And maybe that's why consciousness exists at all, because the universe is not content with silent motion. It produces systems that can notice, that can reflect, that can ask questions. You are the universe becoming aware of its own movement, not outside it, inside it. And that means when you look up at spinning galaxies, you're not observing something foreign. You're recognizing a pattern you belong to. When you feel restless, you're not broken. You're aligned. The universe itself is restless. And now we can finally answer the question, not cleanly, not neatly, but honestly. Why is nothing in the universe still? Because stillness cannot survive. Because existence requires motion. Because balance is dynamic. Because reality is not a frozen sculpture. It's a dance, and you are not watching the dance. You are part of it, spinning quietly through time, holding together not by resisting change, but by moving just enough to remain. And if that thought feels unsettling, good, because the universe is not here to comfort you. It's here to continue. An understanding that doesn't give you peace through certainty. It gives you peace through belonging. You don't need to stop the motion. You never could. You only need to understand that motion is what keeps everything, including you, alive. And once you see that, you don't ask why the universe spins. You realize spinning is what it means to exist. And it always has been, and it always will be,